I'm joined by Caryn Kopp of Kopp Consulting, and Caryn is the Chief Door Opener. Is that right, Caryn?
That's right. That's what they call me.
Excellent. And so today I'd like to talk with you, Caryn, about this whole concept of door opening, because as Chief Door Opener, I presume you are the go-to expert on door opening.
Yes, if you want to know the science of door opening, myself and my company, we're the people to talk to.
Excellent. So tell me a little bit about what do you mean by door opening?
Well, door opening is probably one of the most challenging and frustrating parts of sales. At least that's what everybody tells me. And it takes a special kind of person who really enjoys this part of the sale. But the door opening is the beginning part. It's creating a relationship with the right person, somebody you often don't know, but you'd like to know. And how do you get that door open? How do you pique that person's interest and have that person wanting to hear more from you, wanting to sit down and have a meeting with you?
So let's talk about a bit of that there. When you say the right person, so how do you know it's the right person? And when you work with people, do you find they're often maybe targeting the wrong person?
They're often targeting the wrong person. In fact, if I think back over all the thousands of people that I've worked with over time, about 25% of any one person's prospect list shouldn't be there. They're just targeting the wrong people. And it's a big problem, and it's a huge time waster, especially for people who don't have a lot of extra time for prospecting. They specifically have to be very careful about where they spend their time. And this is a part of the process that is often overlooked. But if you target the wrong person to begin with, what's the point of doing the rest of it? So the targeting is the first and most important piece of making sure that you're opening the right doors. A lot of people ask me, how do I know? And people think about prospect criteria in terms of the easy stuff, the obvious stuff, like size of company, level of decision maker, geography, things like that. But there's a lot more to it than that, especially if you're going to narrow the playing field to prospects who are going to say yes sooner than others. And that's what we have a process called the moment of yes, which includes identifying the exact right target and then creating the message, the sales language that is a slam dunk for that group of people. So how do you create the right target? Well, there are three elements to that, which most people don't think about, but we think about a lot here, especially for the work we do for our clients. And the first is, for whom are you the obvious solution? Right. Not everybody is going to find your solution so obvious, but there's usually a group, if you think a lot about it, that finds you to be the obvious solution. Even better if they find that you are the only solution. And sometimes people say to me, well, only solution, who cares about that? There's such a few, a small number of people who will find you to be the only solution. Sure. And I say that's right. And you should have every single one of them as your client. So that's the obvious solution, who will also willingly pay for your services. Not everybody is going to willingly pay what people want to charge. If people want the low price solution, is your solution even right for them? Why waste time trying to change their minds? Why not just spend more of your time with people who will willingly pay? And the last piece of that is urgency. Do these prospects feel urgency around having a conversation with you and taking next steps? Is there a reason for that urgency? If prospects can meet those three criteria, in addition to size of company, level of decision maker, that's where I find the magic sits.
So if you've identified the right target buyer, what is the next steps in really getting that door open? Because just because you identify them doesn't mean they're going to want to talk to you, right?
Well, exactly. And that's where the sales message is so important. And this is also very much a glossed over area of sales, which is critically important, which is developing, compelling, and what I would call emotionally sticky sales language. What do you say to an individual that will have that person thinking, even though I already have a solution in place and I know 3 other people who do exactly what this company does, and he might even be related to one of those people, but something that this other person said made him feel that he better have that meeting and hear what this person had to say because he could make the prospect's life better. That's where the messaging has to sit. And carefully chosen words and phrases will do that. So people always say to me, well, okay, that's nice that you carefully chosen words and phrases,
Hmm.
but how do I know what they are? So one of the things that we do, I mean, it's probably a 30-hour process that we take our
Sure.
clients through, but one area where we find a lot of golden nuggets, and everybody can do this for themselves, is to contact their A-level clients rather,
Hmm.
and ask them a couple of questions. Ask them what was going on in their world at the time that they felt a conversation with someone new was critically important, because that would dig at that urgency. And then ask them, why did you want to have the conversation with this company? And if you ask usually 3 to 5 representative A-level clients, you may hear some nuggets that you may not know, and they may help you develop sales language.
Yeah, I love that point because I think that customers are the most underutilized resource a lot of companies have. I've done some, I remember doing some presentations a couple of years ago and was talking about changing buyer behavior, right? And
Mm-hmm.
people in the audience afterwards were, they were saying like, well, how do we find out if our buyers' buying process has changed? And I said, ask your customers about their buying
Right.
process because your customers were once your prospects, right?
That's right. That's right. And what I find is that when people do talk to
Mhm.
their customers, they just want to know if they're satisfied,
Yeah.
and they want to know if they'd recommend them, the net promoter score. All really good information, but not good information if you're trying to develop door opening language.
Hmm.
Door opening language requires different questions.
Hmm.
And a lot of people aren't asking the kinds of questions that I just talked about a minute ago.
So, do you think some people give up too easily? That when they try to open doors and the doors don't swing open immediately with the smiling face behind it? Do you think they give up too easily, or is it that they don't have the backup strategies?
Both. I think it's both. One source of incredible frustration for us is when we get clients into the exact right prospect and they have a great meeting and the prospect doesn't lay out the golden opportunity on
Hmm.
meeting number one,
Right.
that they might follow up to meeting number two, and after that they get a little discouraged. And I say to them in the beginning, well, how long is your typical sales cycle, from which is initial conversation to money in hand? And they'll say anything from 6 months to a year, sometimes a year and a half. And it's like, okay, well, if that's your answer, then why did you think it was going to close in 8 weeks?
Hmm.
Because it's just the beginning. People who, especially people who are spending a lot of money, they are relationship building. It's very important to have that level of trust before the money goes on the table. And I find, and lately, actually, I would say there's a trend over the last year to 2 years of increasing fatigue on the part of not only the sellers, but also the managers
Mm.
to stick with this nurturing process, this relationship that must form in order to have the prospects feel comfortable to say yes and become clients. And it's a really dangerous situation, because if the sellers are not sticking with it and their managers are instructing them not to stick with it, then what that does is it lays the foundation for the competition to come in and easily take the sale. What a shame. It doesn't
Hmm.
have to be that way. People need, and I'm preaching to the choir, of course,
Sure.
people need a structured system of follow-up, and they need a methodology to track their follow-up in order to make sure that it happens and they don't lose those valuable opportunities to their competitors.
So, are you amazed sometimes about the lack of process, lack of defined process that's out there, and that there are still sales organizations and companies who think that they don't need a defined engagement process?
Well, I think that most of them, if you ask them, do you need that? They would tell you they do.
Hmm.
But then if you ask them, do you have that? They would say, well, we have a little bit of that, or part of our process is
Hmm.
well defined and the rest of the process is not. The key, it really comes from management.
Hmm.
Management has to basically stop traffic and say, it's time to make sure that all the pieces are properly in place within our sales process. The target is right, the message is right, the answers for for the objections are right. They have the right people who are doing the work and following the right process. All those pieces have to be in place. Once they put them in place, then they rinse and repeat, but they don't want to stop long enough to get that in place. And so therefore, what I see from my chair is a lot of opportunities and a lot of dollars left on the table, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, I agree completely. And another point that it was just came to my mind as we were talking, right, is that okay, so we've heard a lot over the last few years about inbound, right, and inbound marketing. And do you think to some degree people have started to get a little spoiled or think, I can sit back and have these doors open for me. This inbound marketing is going to open the doors for me, therefore I don't have to open doors and I can kind of sit back and wait. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, that's exactly true. Even though the inbound marketing companies will all tell them that this is not what that does. This creates awareness. It creates hand raisers, and not always at the right level. I mean, think about the C-suite in a large company. They're not going to be the ones raising their hands. They're going to forward that email, if they read it, to somebody below them and say, hey, check this out. But if you want to open up a conversation with somebody at a senior level and they're not the ones who are raising their hands, then you need to figure out somehow, and that's outbound, to open up a relationship with the person who you really want to open the relationship and start the dialogue. But people are, I wouldn't call it lazy. I think they're hopeful.
Yeah.
I think they're really hopeful that they won't have to do the work of actually developing a relationship with someone. But that is not really how most sales occur. In fact, I wrote an article, it's on my blog, about inbound marketing won't get you all the meetings that you want. Right. And it's really true. So they will get you some, but check and make sure, are these actually the meetings that you want that will lead you to the size sale you want, at the profit you want, at the point of entry that you want? And if it isn't, is it worth your valuable time in following up? I mean, the other sad thing about the inbound marketing is, it's wonderful technology. Sure. And it's fascinating technology, but it's usually held by marketing, and sales is over here. And it's rare that I find a company that does a very good job meshing the inbound marketing with their sales program. More often than not, the leads are coming in. The salespeople say, I don't want to follow up on that. And the marketing people have a very low-level person, sometimes an intern, follow up on the lead, but they're not actually qualified to have a conversation with a senior-level decision maker, which will produce an outcome. So there's a lot of flaws. I think it has real potential, but there's a lot of flaws with the way it is with regard to process right now.
So when you look at an organization, or when you engage with an organization, what are some of the first things that you look to do? I mean, what's the starting point?
Well, usually when people land on my doorstep, they're looking to get in with high-level decision makers to discuss some sort of a large engagement. Usually big companies, but not exclusively so, is the target. And they all our clients say the same thing. You get me in front of a prospect, I can close a sale most of the time. I just can't get in front of enough of the right prospects. So that's what they all say. And then they come to us, and as long as they have the right people in place, we let our process take over, which is what I was talking about before. We start out with a deep dive into the target, who really deserves their time and attention, because if they're going to spend money on us to go get them these high-level meetings that they can't get for themselves, there better be an ROI attached to it. So who deserves their time and attention? What is the sales message? And we develop that sales message for them, because they often don't know. And the marketing message is different than the sales message. Sure. They may spend lots of money developing their website and the marketing message that's meant for the general masses, but not the sales language that's meant to move an individual from one place in his or her thinking to the next. And then we also develop the answers for the objections. We make sure that any information that needs to be sent to prospects when they request it is correct. It doesn't look like it's something that was printed in somebody's garage, right? And so it's professional, and it deserves to be seen by these high-level decision makers. And then we put one of our door openers on it. And in our company, door openers are senior level business developers. They all have a minimum of 10 years experience in business development, and most of them have held decision maker roles in corporations too. That's who represents our clients out there. Those people can have conversations with high level decision makers, but we test their proficiency also, not necessarily in the technique because they
Sure.
know how to do that, but in the conversation. When they reach a high level decision maker, how successful are they going to be in having that conversation and getting the outcome? We test that proficiency before our door openers go live. That's actually an overlooked area for most companies. They don't test people's proficiency before they get out there and start representing them. And then we just start delivering the magic, the meetings. Thursday at 10, you need to be here. Friday at 2, you need to be there, whether it's a conference call or an in-person. And then our clients go on the meetings and take it from there.
Yeah, so in the last couple of minutes, you've talked a lot about relationship and building relationships. And over the last number of years, maybe that piece has gotten a little bit lost, as people have said,
Yeah.
well, the buyer does their own research, the buyer's got lots of information, everything is automated, this and do you think that the relationship building is as important as ever, maybe even more important, and that there's going to be more focus on it in the coming years?
It's a really good question. And I think it depends on what you're selling.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're selling something that could be researched completely online and purchased completely online, and usually those are low level purchases,
Sure.
right? I think that the relationship is becoming less and less important in those arenas.
Mm-hmm.
But if your buyer is 35 years old or more, and you're selling something that is a big ticket item, and now a lot more people are selling completely over the phone. $1 million sales are
Yeah.
happening over the phone. We see that. But the relationship piece of it in that arena is critical. And the beautiful opportunity is that many people think it's not, so they're not doing it. And those are the ones who are losing to the people who are willing to invest the time and make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. Well, listen, thanks, Karen. This has been a fascinating conversation. In a minute or two, why don't you tell the viewers a little bit more about you and your company and how they can contact you?
Okay, great. So we are Kopp Consulting. It's KOPP Consulting. Our website is koppconsultingusa.com, and we are best known for the door opener service. So if you want to get in the door with those high level prospects, more doors than you have the ability to get in on your own, then definitely reach out to us through the website. We'll get back to you right away and see if we can help you. We work with all different kinds of companies, mostly service, but product too. Anybody from meeting planning companies who want to target pharma, to communication services who want to get into big banks, to experiential marketing companies who want to get into the big media and entertainment companies, software as a service, a lot of that. Any kind of technology product, anybody looking to get in with a chief marketing officer. Usually when they come to us, they want to get in anywhere in the C-suite, SVP, VP, director level. I also have a book out. It's an Amazon bestseller I co-authored with Carl Gould called BizDev Done Right. And I encourage people to pick that up. It's all about the blind spots in the sales process that keep people from the success they really deserve.
Okay, and we will put that book on the SalesPOP bookstore as one of the
Thank
featured
you.
book of the week. We'll put it up there, and people can just go on Amazon and buy it from there.
Okay, terrific.
Listen, Karen, this has been fantastic. I love the door opener concept. I love what you're doing, and I think our viewers are going to get a lot out of this interview. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It was great to spend some time with you.